Atlanta. Sometimes a season doesn't end quietly. Sometimes it ends all at once, under the brightest lights, on the biggest stage, with everything on the line. That's exactly how Oregon's 2025 season came to a close Friday night. The Ducks were one win away from playing for a national championship. One game, one more chance to chase history. But in the college football playoff semifinal at the Peach Bowl, Oregon ran headfirst into a red-hot Indiana team that never looked back. The final score, 56-22, doesn't just tell the story of a loss, it tells the story of momentum, mistakes, and a season that ended far sooner than anyone in Eugene hoped it would. For Oregon, this wasn't just another defeat, it was the end of a journey that began months ago with championship expectations and ended with unanswered questions and quiet locker room hallways. Indiana struck first, immediately, and that moment changed everything. On the very first play from scrimmage, Oregon quarterback Dante Moore dropped back, scanned the field, and released the ball. Seconds later, an Indiana defender jumped the route, intercepted the pass, and raced untouched into the end zone. A pick six. Before Oregon had even settled in, they were already trailing. You could feel it in the stadium, that collective gasp, that sudden shift in energy. The Ducks weren't just behind on the scoreboard, they were chasing the game before it had truly begun. To their credit, Oregon responded. The offense steadied itself and marched down the field on a methodical 14-play, 75-yard drive. Moore found Jamari Johnson in the end zone for a 19-yard touchdown, tying the game at 7-7 and briefly restoring hope. But that moment was fleeting. From there, the first half unraveled piece by piece. Turnovers began to stack up. Oregon committed 3 first-half turnovers, and every single one turned into points for Indiana. The Hoosiers didn't just capitalize, they punished every mistake. Short fields, quick scores, relentless pressure. By halftime, the game felt like it was slipping away, even though the scoreboard didn't fully reflect how tilted things had become. Indiana quarterback Francisco Mendoza, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, was surgical, calm, efficient. He completed 17 of his 20 passes for 177 yards and 5 touchdowns. On third down, Indiana converted 11 of 14 opportunities, extending drives and breaking Oregon's defensive rhythm over and over again. It wasn't flashy, it was devastatingly precise. Meanwhile, Oregon was fighting uphill and doing it short-handed. The Ducks entered the game without key offensive weapons. Leading rusher Noah Whittington was a game-time decision and clearly limited. Freshman standout Jordan Davison, the team's leading scorer, was sidelined with injury. The run game never found consistent footing. De'Aaron Hill did his best, breaking free for a 71-yard run that set up a touchdown in the third quarter, finishing with 86 yards on the ground. But outside of that explosive play, Oregon struggled to control the line of scrimmage. And yet, here's the part that makes the loss sting even more. Oregon didn't get blown out in the traditional sense. Statistically, the Ducks outgained Indiana. Oregon finished with 378 total yards compared to Indiana's 362. They moved the ball, they created opportunities, but football games aren't won on yardage alone. They're won and lost in moments, and Oregon lost too many of those moments. A blocked punt in the fourth quarter gave Indiana another short field and another touchdown. Sudden change after sudden change. Every time Oregon tried to regain balance, something tipped the scales back in Indiana's favor. After the game, head coach Dan Lanning didn't sugarcoat it. He gave Indiana credit, full credit, and acknowledged what his team was up against. He talked about preparation, about execution, about how Indiana started fast and never slowed down. And then his voice shifted from analysis to something more personal. He spoke about the locker room, about the seniors, about what it means when a season ends, not just in the standings, but in real life. He talked about judging players not by one loss, but by the men they'll become someday. Fathers, husbands, leaders. And then he admitted something that every coach feels but doesn't always say out loud. In that moment, he said, you feel like you failed them. Not because they didn't fight, not because they didn't care, but because they don't get another chance to put on that uniform and run out onto that field together again. Senior linebacker Bryce Botker left that weight more than most. Playing in his final collegiate game, Botker led the Ducks with 11 tackles. He played hard until the final whistle. Afterward, he didn't make excuses, he didn't deflect blame. He simply said the truth. This wasn't how he envisioned it. Oregon prepared to win. Indiana was better on this night. That's the brutal honesty of playoff football. You don't get to ease into it. You don't get a second chance. One night defines everything. For quarterback Dante Moore, the night was a mix of growth and hard lessons. He finished 24 of 39 for 285 yards and 2 touchdowns, but the early interception loomed large. He owned it afterward, saying it plainly, you can't win football games if you turn the ball over. Especially against a defense that disguises coverages the way Indiana does. The Ducks' final touchdown came in the last minute of the game, a pass from Moore to tight end Roger Saliapaga. By then, the outcome was sealed. The points were symbolic, a reminder that Oregon never stopped competing, even when the mountain was too steep to climb. When the clock hit 0, there was no dramatic collapse, no chaos, just stillness. Helmets came off, hands went to hips, eyes dropped to the turf. For the 5th time in 3 years, Oregon lost to a team that would go on to play for a national championship. That's not a failure by most standards. It's proof of how close this program has been and how thin the margin truly is at the top. Indiana now moves on to face Miami in the College Football Playoff National Championship on January 19th. Oregon heads home. Their season, 13 wins, 2 losses, ties a program record. The Ducks were the only team in the nation to win 13 games in back-to-back seasons. They changed expectations, they changed perceptions, they changed lives. But on this night, under the lights in Atlanta, they learned the hardest lesson of all. In college football, sometimes being great isn't enough, and sometimes the end comes faster than you're ready for.